man, what's going on? We getting bigger and bigger. We getting better and better. And we shitting on anybody and everybody who said we aren't who we are. Episode 3 of the 6 week live special, my 6 week live special. We're getting into a topic that for me is very much not too touchy. First off, before we get started, I want to tell y'all to keep streaming bigger, keep streaming Ain't No Loverboy FR, keep really getting into Mason Jyree, keep loving me like I'm loving you. As the series goes on, we're gonna get into more serious topics. Do not forget to join me tomorrow at 8:30 for episode 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for episode 4. Okay, 2024, we're piggybacking off of 2020 through 2023. 2020, the end of 2023, I filmed a TV show. I came back home to Clinton, and I started dealing with somebody that I was dealing with in my past or whatnot. So if, in my eyes, the relationship was great. Everything was cool. Everything was good. And it's still not any beef with me, and it never will be beef. You know. So entering 2024, I was in a relationship. I started a new job. Around February 2024, I signed like a distribution deal with this upcoming uh studio, I guess you could say record label studio in my hometown. So, that was that. Throughout 2024, I realized, the relationship, things were going um, I realized things were going a little rocky, a little rocky. And I honestly knew things were going rocky from the jump. I knew things were going rocky back before I even knew that things were going, rocky, if I'm being real with you. But I wasn't the same person now that I am then. I mean, that I was then. The me now, I have a low tolerance for BS. I have a low tolerance for bullshit. And I'm really strictly focused on what serves me. And if it does not serve me, I don't have time for it. So, uh, you know, what I really learned throughout this whole era, because I was signed to, like I said, like an independent studio label or whatever. I did drop an album called A Faulty Heart. What's up, Alejandro? I did drop an album called A Faulty. So, all that came out. But the biggest thing I learned throughout this relationship era, or throughout that relationship era in 2024, was that I didn't lose sight of my vision once I got into a relationship. I a lot of artists, a lot of creative, a lot of people, not just being an artist, people in general, when they get into a relationship, they lose sight of their own goals. That relationship, it was either focus on the relationship or focus on your goals. And I chose to focus on my goals, and I'm doing way better than where I was at throughout that time. I guess I can say I was like pushing myself thin, because as hard as I was going, making my albums, doing what I was doing, I was also trying to go that hard and love, but I wasn't getting that reciprocation, you know? And it's like, it's fine, because me being me is like, I can add to it. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. But it got to a point that I only could do so much. And it's like, I have to focus on my dreams. I have to focus and do what I'm doing for myself. And, I had to really learn that that was important. 2024 was a very it was one of those years where I was like, it felt like I was just on autopilot, like I'm just floating through life. After signing that distribution deal in February of that year, the person that I was, dealing with, it's like they wouldn't come to like the studio with me, or they wouldn't, they just weren't like, wasn't an active participant in my success. And I feel like the person or the people for me are active participants in my success. But the 2024 me, what did I do? Nah, I kept dealing with it, kept giving more and more of my energy. You know, it's like, it's crazy, because it's like I'm not the same person I was then now, but it's like I'm not like angry with myself or anything like that. Like, I'm not upset or anything. It's just, it is what it is. But I think the main thing that I'm glad about is that people don't come into my life and run Mason Jyree. Like, people don't come into my life and run me. You know what I mean? Um, so it's like, yeah, I've always been independent. I've always been like an independent type of guy. So if I am, in love, it's like I'm never gonna lose sight of my dreams and my goals and just stuff like that. Like, I'll never do it for anybody else, other than myself, because I've always been a firm believer, even in love. Like, in life, you're born alone, you're gonna die alone. So make the best of it. That's how I look at this. So I don't do the controlling. I don't control people, and nobody's gonna come control me, ever. Um, and not because I'm gonna keep it real. I don't really have problems with people trying to control me in love. If I'm being real, they already know what's up. They know they know. But it's more so like just someone adding to what I have going on, or somebody subtracting to it. Where I'm at in life, if you cannot add to what I have, you know, I can't deal with you. But at that time in 2024, it was like, you can't add, but I can add it. And it's like just a whole bunch of heat, blah, blue, and a whole bunch of bullshit, if I'm being honest with you. Um, it's crazy because most people, enduring the love that I did, like most people would have lost themselves. So I have to give myself a pat on the back. I'm somewhat strong a little bit because most people would have lost themselves to love, especially because there's so many different things that we don't talk about for real as people on this earth, like power dynamics in relationships, when people feel like you need them or when you don't need them, or different stuff like that. People, especially people, how do I put this? Sometimes, and if if you know, and if sometimes people think when they meet you, they can play with you. You know what I mean? And they'll realize, or they feel like, okay, well, some people want you to need them. You know what I mean? Some people, they thrive off of power dynamics in relationships, and I had to realize a lot of different things regarding to that. I had to realize a lot of things regarding to that. If I'm being honest with you. Um, so that's really just that. And a dummy, excuse my French, because that's what they would be. A dummy would be a fool to let somebody reel them and knock them off course for their goals and aims. I would have been a dummy. Your name is Mason too? It's only one Mason Jyree now. It's only one Mason Jyree, but welcome to the Lions Den. Welcome to the Lions Den. Um, that's really just that, if I'm being honest with you. Love for me is like, I had to realize, I think I realized this last Tuesday, believe it or not. Love for me is not conventional. It's like, it's very Aquarius, like very friendly. You know what I mean? Very friendly, not too deep, light, flirty. And I love that. If I'm being honest with you, but at that time, I think I was over. No, no, no. Let me be honest. I know I was overgiving. Not I think I was overgiving to someone who could not give back to me. And I'm gonna be real with y'all. Listen, sometimes people don't know how to love you, okay? But sometimes they know what they're doing. They just ain't shit. But it's up to us as people to decipher who loves us and who doesn't. And when you got a career like mine, and when you're building something like me, I had to know who loved me and who didn't love me, because certain people can be detrimental to my future. And I'm glad I realized that. What's up, Hollywood? I see your jealousy, cause you watching. If you know, you know. Kinda sexy to me, how you watching? What keep watching? If you know, you know. If you know where that song is from, you know. Welcome to Hollywood. What's up, Alejandro? What's up? Okay, I saw all those comments. So that's just that. That's just really just that. If you're new to the Lions, then welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're not new, then we're getting bigger and bigger. However, back to 2024, I also was achieving a lot of different things at that time in my life. Credit cards, got my first credit cards, moved to my first home. I was doing a lot of different things in coinciding with my career, if I'm being real. But it's like at the same time, I'm trying to force somebody, let me not say force, because it was nothing forceful. Trying to make somebody love me, if I'm being real, and it's just small stuff. Let me tap into my Venus and Cancer for a second. I'm sorry, but it's just small stuff that I had to really realize, for real. You can't even show up to the studio session. You can't even hold a camera while I record a music video. You ain't the one for me. You can't tell me that sounds really good. Wow, like that. You ain't the one for me. You gotta go. You gotta go. And it's like, I was a dummy before, because I didn't realize that, because that's what a person would be, a dummy. I was a dummy. Had to be. Had to be. Had to have been, you know? Um, and throughout 2024, it's like, one thing about me, I was never gonna let myself, and I never will let myself stay with somebody and have me fall off, or stay with them and I don't succeed. I'll always choose myself before I fall victim to somebody else, So by the end of 2024, I had left that relationship. I left that relationship and I moved on to, I didn't move on to bigger and better anything. I moved on to myself. and then we got into what we're going to talk about in the next episode as far as 2025 and going live and where we are, where I am now. And as the series goes on, we're going to get into some very deep topics about my childhood, stuff that I really want to open, be truthful and be honest about, just everything like that. I'm learning to just own myself, and really and take freedom in it. It's like a weight off my chest, liberation for real. Liberation. Yeah. Um so yeah, that's really just that. 2024, like I said, was an inward year for me. It was an inward year. I signed that distribution deal with the record label in my town. Things went. I'm not gonna say things went left. They didn't go left, but like I said, people. I had to understand power plays. If I'm being real with you, I had to understand power plays, and I had to understand how things are set up for real. Let me not say how things are set up, because things aren't set up like that for me and the people that I deal with. But sometimes when you're a person like me, people will try to put you in situations and try to get one over on you. It's just something about it. I don't know. But yeah, 2024 was a pivotal year. You know what I mean? Coming off of everything we talked about in episode 2, as far as just 2023, everything I built for myself, everything that I did, 2024 was like it was a pivotal year. Now I'm not gonna lie, in that relationship, I didn't get a lot of work done. I did drop an album. I put out a couple books, but versus what I was doing when I was alone, and what we talked about in episode 2, I was, I was working very quickly. And something else I really want to hint at is that I think one thing that I want to make adamant and be clear is that when it comes to me and anybody that I ever date or that I have dated, nobody made me. I made myself, and that's clear. So if you are rocking with me, you're rocking beside a boss, and you just need to be grateful for that. You know what I mean? If you are rocking with me, you're rocking beside a boss, and you need to be grateful for that, because nobody made me. That's what I would tell my ex lover, from in the whole 2024 era. I made myself, because I had been building this years before I even met that and came into that pivotal moment, you know. Um, so that's that, Lions. I love you guys so much. Be here tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. for episode 4, where it's gonna be a little bit longer. We're gonna get into things, gonna get into after the relationship, 2025 to present day, present moment right now. And after that, this series, we're gonna get a little deep. We're gonna talk about things in my life, deep things, and I'm owning up to my truth, because what is it? It's my truth. I love you, Lions. Keep it sexy, keep it hot. It's your boy Mason Jyree, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Abontoir.